It's an honor to stand. Yeah, go ahead, please. We've got more.
It's our home, our hometown, and it's the people there that I didn't know, folks in the air who made it so, the feeling all around this magic town. They need a reason to say hello, and folks always wave back that you don't even know. That makes me feel like it's my very own. It's not just mine, it's not just yours. It's our home, our very own. It's all our hometown. New harmony, new harmony, new harmony. Indiana, it sings to me, it breathes to me. Always be the only home for me. New harmony, Indiana. New harmony, it sings to me, it breathes to me, it will always be the only home for me. New harmony, new harmony, new harmony, new harmony, Indiana.
We're at the portion of the program where you can see everyone's names, but everyone's being introduced except me. So I'll introduce myself. Hi, my name is Audra Verona Lambert, and I serve as the curator at the New Harmony Gallery of Contemporary Art. If you're ever, oh, thank you. If you are ever unsure of who is speaking, it is here as well. So, 50 years at the New Harmony Gallery of Contemporary Art. 5-0. We can measure time, but as it turns out, there are innumerable ideas, aspirations, and achievements that a number by itself is unable to fully capture or express. Let's lead with the number, though. What can happen in 50 years? Well, as it turns out, an art space can produce around 400 exhibitions, feature well over 1,000 artists, produce a nest of tree houses on a town square, a car wrapped in a bandana, a multi-dimensional terrestrial satellite array, silver balloons flying at visitors from every angle, interactive musical sculpture, an artist in a shower, stacks of painted cowtails. The list unwinds itself year after year. Exhibitions interspersed with artist lectures and presentations, interactive art programs and publications. Underpinning all these activities, though, are the people with the passion and drive to make this a reality. All of this, and on a site of a millennia of growth, exchange ceremonies, civil engineering, religious fervor, educational aspiration, labyrinth construction, and utopic dreaming. There is certainly a lot for anyone with creative aspirations to unpack right here in New Harmony. And some of the most memorable moments at the gallery have occurred when our artists are empowered to see their vision soar. In Jane Blatford Owen's insightful and intimate writings in New Harmony, Indiana, Like a River, Not a Lake, a memoir, Jane recounts a moment of exchange with a visiting violinist set to play at New Harmony's Murphy Auditorium. He had planned a classical music concert. Jane advised he would have more success playing musicals and hit tunes, but he stood firm. A classical musical concert is what it was to be. and Jane attended and was overwhelmed by the hush and reverence of the crowd, held rapt before launching into thunderous applause once he finished. Jane observed that she learned something very important in that moment, that in working to sow the seeds of artistic production in this unique town, she should, as she observed, strive to talk up, not down, to connect the artist with the audience and let the magic happen. In producing exhibits by artists living and working in our moment over the many years of the gallery as an entity has had the honor of hosting some monumental and well-known artists. We have also had the privilege of hosting many equally genius, clever, and engaging artists working at both the local, regional, and even the national level, alongside their nationally and internationally recognized peers. The through line connecting all of our programs is best summed up in Jane's observation, to talk up. We are a space that allows artists with a compelling vision to create, to connect. We let the magic happen. We host exhibitions that inspire visitors to dream of what could be possible, and public art installations that yield literal harvests, spring after spring. And fall, what does fall bring? In recent years, University of Southern Indiana freshman students have entered our gallery every September, meeting last year with local woodworkers, fiber artists, and painters. And this year, students were invited to leave their mark with a postcard that marks the time of our 50th to be entered into a time capsule for the university's art collection. These were entered alongside with other contributions from USI faculty and staff, including our president, Stephen Bridges, alongside with other contributions from New Harmony Town residents. We are proud of these interactions and the role we serve as part of the University of Southern Indiana in order to form community and a wider connection to the region. As a space, over the years, we have looked to who visits as much as who we select to present at the space. With our current 50th show, entitled Look Both Ways, on view for the final day tomorrow from 12 to 5 p.m., come by. We now have artworks on loan not only from the USI Art Collection, but also from the Fort Wayne Museum of Art, Anne and Lenny Dowie, and several other private collectors and artist studios near and far. This show offers a rich presentation and a range of artwork speaking to the gallery's history and the work we do to connect artists and art centers across the region, thus offering quality programming that makes an impact for all our visitors. We create a platform where dreamers can realize visions that inspire us all to live more fully, more preciously, and more attuned to the creative spirit, the creative impetus that dwells within all of us. Also in Jane's memoir, she stated the simple realization that other acts shall follow, other voices heard. We do not exist in a vacuum. As the many of us here today know, we who work to support the communities we love, offering up our precious time on this earth to bring beauty into this world in ways we find meaningful. We understand that work is up to us. Each individual joins hands in order to steward and guide that which we love, to create avenues of opportunity to preserve, yes, and also to conscientiously explore and grow. For those unaware of Jane Blaffer Owen's monumental impact on the gallery, I have joked with at least two of our former directors that her purchases at the gallery seem to have single-handedly kept us in business. And although I was not here over the many years, the things you learn when you get access to the books. Jane unequivocally supported the arts and understood that the arts, visual arts, plastic arts, theater, music, poetry, all have a supernatural ability to allow us access to the parts of ourselves that make us feel truly alive. It is every person who has poured their soul into creating a space of vibrant and unexpected artistic encounters working at this gallery year after year. It is every advisory board member, exhibition partner, university faculty, student who have walked into our space and entrusted us with their artwork. It is every colleague and peer who finds ways to share audiences with us and to bring news of what we do out into the world. It is every artist who shares their singular focus and vision with us to realize our programming. You can measure the years, the shows, even the visitors, but it's impossible to measure the sheer strength of will and spirit invested in the gallery's existence from those who have loved our gallery over the years. And now the future arrives, an unknown, impossible to count. And our job is clear. It is now our responsibility to continue to pass along the key, which unlocks the door to creative expression for anyone and everyone who encounters our lovely slice of artistic utopia, year after year, show after show, and voice after voice. Thank you. With that, I'd like to welcome the University of Southern Indiana Director of Community Engagement and Historic New Harmony, Leslie Townsend.
Thank you, Audra. That was a wonderful reflection. And I do have to thank Audra for all of her work in pulling together all the commemorative activities for the gallery's 50th. As we celebrate 50 years of the New Harmony Gallery of Contemporary Art, I'd like to start off with a personal story that speaks to the gallery's quiet but powerful impact over the decades. When my husband and I were students out at USI, just starting to date, we would often take trips to New Harmony. It was our escape, our place to explore, and we always made time to stop at the gallery. I remember one visit in particular. There was an exhibition of these beautiful sweeping landscapes, huge canvases filled with mostly sky. They were completely beautiful, and we were taken by them. Now, fast forward more than a decade, and I had just started working in outreach and engagement at USI. I walked into Ed Jones' office for a meeting, and there it was, one of those paintings from the day, and I recognized it instantly. I hadn't thought about that visit in years, but in that moment, I was reminded how art stays with us. It connects time, place, and memory. I never imagined that the student who wandered into the gallery in 1987 would one day be here helping to celebrate the gallery's 50th, but that's the magic of this place. In 1985, USI took over management of the gallery as part of historic New Harmony. This was the same year we became independent from Indiana State University, and it was really a bold move, linking a young university with a town steeped in cultural and historical significance. Since then, the gallery and historic New Harmony have worked hand in hand to share that legacy, from exhibitions like the Athenaeum Invitational in 1990 to Minerva, Harmony to Hollywood in 2020. Each show has deepened our understanding of New Harmony's unique story. Public art has flourished through this partnership. Take the Oculus, created by Scottish land artist Jim Buchanan. He transformed a West Street cabin into a camera obscura for the Labyrinth Society's annual gathering. It's now a favorite stop for students during Heritage Artisan Days and USI 101 freshman experience. Unfortunately, it's not open right now because it's being repaired, but it still is a remarkable piece, and we hope to have it open soon. Then there's the Tree of 40 Fruits, living sculptures by Sam Van Aken, crafted with varieties of stone fruits once grown by the harmonists. They sit just east of the Athenaeum, rooted in its history and innovation. We've even launched specialty tram tours to showcase New Harmony's public art, including those trees. Just last weekend, Audra and Heidi Doss, one of our interpreters, led a sunset tour that brought the stories behind the art to life. Artists continue to draw inspiration from historic New Harmony's collections. Earlier this year, Infinite Gauge explored environmental changes along the Wabash and White Rivers, blending sculpture, media, archival imagery, and some taken from our own collections. And through programs like Talking History, led by Heidi Taylor Cottle, Historic New Harmony's collection and community engagement manager, we've created space for community members to share their stories and artifacts including one focusing on the Wabash River that was held at the gallery in conjunction with Infinite Gauge. These conversations are as much a part of the gallery's legacy as the art on the walls. Looking ahead, we're thrilled about a new chapter. Historic New Harmony has received a $2.5 million grant from the Lilly Endowment to support exhibitions and programs centered on religion and spirituality. Part of this initiative includes a public art program in McClure Square. So stay tuned for exciting temporary art installations over the next few years. All of this, every exhibition, every program, every memory, speaks to the enduring impact of the gallery and its partnership with Historic New Harmony. Congratulations to everyone who has been a part of this journey, and here's to the next 50 years of creativity, collaboration, and community. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce Dosey Lewis, New Harmony-based artist and a valued member of the gallery's advisory board. Thank you.
Hello, it's so nice to see all you friendly faces out there. As a speaker, you don't necessarily have the opportunity to read everybody's speeches in advance, and therefore there is quite a bit of repetition that we're apt to experience, particularly in my little contribution. So one of the things I did as I was contemplating birthdays, my own birthday was yesterday, but I went online to have a look at all the institutions, everything from Route 66 that runs through town to the school, the bridge, even the New Harmony Choir. I put it all on a list to aggregate the years, the number of years total we have to celebrate, including the gallery, and it is over 5,500 years. I have the documents to prove it if anybody wants to know about it, and that doesn't count the Indians who were here, the Miami and Shawnee before we even got here, and archaeology is not a perfect science. We may find some more digs that put it beyond the 1000 CBE. So anyway, we have a lot to live up to. Let's put it that way. I moved to New Harmony 22 years ago, and I now serve on the Gallery Advisories Board, along with a whole bunch of other advisory boards. If you volunteers, I see you throughout the audience. It's a delight, and also it stretches our own creativity when you belong to an organization that has been built by so many creative people. You don't want to be just dead wood. You want to help push the limits. I like to think of the gallery as the little gallery that could. A little space on a little budget in a little town with a little staff and a great big mission. Now, not all staff members are little in their impact, and we have so many. I think we have 2 directors here from the old guard. That would be John Bagley and Connie. Am I missing somebody else? Okay, sorry. I don't know you personally. I met you a few times, and I didn't realize you were one of the pioneers. Forgive me. And of course, there's Audra, who is a force of nature, as you've all encountered, and we wouldn't have this celebration without her incredible leadership and energy. She made us come here and practice this morning, too, which, may or may not have helped our cause. As a descendant of Robert Owen, I've always known art is in this town's DNA. When my ancestors arrived to build a new moral world, art wasn't a luxury, it was their survival skill. They needed to map, they needed to document, they didn't have cell phones and AI and computers and hard drives to store it all. It all had to be done by hand, and there were many artists of great skill, including my great-great-grandfather, David Dale, I have some of his artworks on my wall, and I am blown away by how good an artist he was. And then there was Richard Owen, who mapped and drew buildings, and he was just an incredible technician and artist. They learned their skills in England in I never pronounce it right, Havel. They had an early education in Germany thanks to Robert Owen's vision of education. They were followed by Carl Bodmer, whose portraits of Native Americans, I went back and looked at them yesterday, and he doesn't showcase bloody battles and the kind of TV version we may have in our out-of-date history. He captures the wonderful character of those ancestors who were on this land before us, and with great respect. Then, of course, there was Le Sueur, who drew mice eating corn and a few other fabulous things, and along with the mussels and everything else. Lucy Say, Thomas Say's wife, was an artist, celebrated artist. The list goes on. We may no longer need art today to identify a new species of firefly, but we do need it, perhaps more than ever, to translate the navigate complexities of modern life. Thanks to the ongoing vision of USI, the New Harmony Gallery of Contemporary Art has become our kaleidoscope, a window into contemporary culture that says New Harmony honors its history, but we are not stuck in the past. That same spirit, art as discovery, infused the founding of this gallery 50 years ago. While I have not made it to every exhibition, there are certain memorable ones. I guess I won't list the balloons because that's one of them, but everybody's talking about that one. In 2012, the gallery had quite literally a barn burner. Juan Angel Chavez's Scraping the Bowl, if some of you remember that one. He set an actual barn on fire outside of town and filmed that. And then I guess after the wood had cooled down, it was deconstructed and reconstructed on the floor of the gallery. It transformed remains into art. It was an act of destruction and rebirth. And just last year, during the Transcendence exhibit, performance artists Sylva Dean and me stopped traffic on Main Street, gliding down the road in gowns made of recycled milk cartons. It was our kind of let them eat cake moment, a Marie Antoinette, eco-chic, let them drink milk moment. Sorry, I'm not used to reading my speeches. I usually just rattle off. Okay, I want to get to the human connection. The gallery also provides a human connection, meeting artists in person. Those afternoon opening receptions when artists translate their process into words are like small master classes. There's an energy in viewing art together, almost like live theater. Because this gallery is part of USI, it bridges town and gown. It allows us, residents of a village of 750 souls, as well as USI students and faculty, to stay engaged with a national conversation about art and culture. The gallery's commitment doesn't end at the exhibit walls. The shop next door sustains local makers, letting visitors take home a piece of New Harmony's creative spark. It also partners with other institutions. As a board member of the Robert Lee Blaffer Foundation, I'm especially proud of our foundation's support of the New Harmony Clay Project. Lenny, are you here? Yay, well, thank you for letting me talk you into it, and then you talking me into continuing to do it with you. So we're very grateful for that. The gallery, in turn, represents the work of these ceramic artists each year in an annual show that is always luminous. That collection is also traveling around the Midwest and is currently in Illinois at Carbondale campus. On a more personal note, Threading My Way, my own 2019 show at the gallery, reconnected me to my roots in fiber art and led to new collaborations. Gallery 411 in Columbus, and Art Space, Tube Factory Art Space with Big Car, along with the Social Alchemy Project, which has interacted with New Harmony over a period of how many years, Chate? 7 or 8 years, so that has launched new chapters. As Ben Folds, who some of you may know, was the artistic director of the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., he was interviewed on PBS. He resigned in protest. And he said, "The role of the artist is to be expressive and honest. In a world where honesty can feel elusive, this gallery remains our sanctuary for it. Here's to the next 50 years of imagination, courage, and community." Thank you. I've already shouted out to Chate, but now she gets to shout at us. Chate Marsh is the co-founder of Big Car Collaborative and director of programs and exhibitions in the Tube Factory Art Space. And Jim, her co-conspirator, is right here in the audience too. So we thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's great to see you all here today. First of all, I'm going to talk about what Big Car is. And Big Car is an artist-run organization that Jim and I, my husband Jim, and I co-founded in 2004, and we lead. It's a group of artists. And all artists need a muse. And for us, we met our muse in New Harmony, and many of you that we've worked with. So when one of our friends and my mentor, Jeremy Ephraimson, purchased a house here, we came here, and I was stunned. You know, I was born and raised in Indiana, and I hadn't seen anything like it, so connected across time. You see a lot of the same themes recycling through time, and it's always on the right side from what I've seen. I don't know everything. I'm not a perfect expert on New Harmony, but typically at the forefront and on the right side of history. And so we started coming here, and Jeremy we would do these community conversations, and we believed in also not just coming here and taking from the town. We wanted to learn from you all as well. So that was part of the reason we started doing exchanges. So I would curate a show at the New Harmony Gallery of Contemporary Art, and then we would host an exhibit of a New Harmony-based artist. And so I had shown Dossie Lewis's work, Laura Foster Nicholson, Marianne Mishna. Anyone who wanted to show with us, we exhibited in Indianapolis. And coming up next year will be Ben Nicholson. So this is continuing. Social Alchemy is continuing. And the thing about New Harmony, too, is that it spans time. So just all these periods of history, I think it's a special place being in between two fault lines, too. It gives it, I think that's probably what has always drawn people to this place, some invisible pull a lot of people talk about. I believe you, and it's why we continue to work here. It's also, we've learned a lot. We have on our campus, we're commissioning contemporary art museum. We don't collect artwork, but we We also have affordable artist housing. You know, we want to take back and redefine what museum means as well. Museums, why wouldn't a contemporary art museum have artist housing? You know, when you look back at the history of the harmonious and communal living, and Robert Owen, and even how Jane would set up different residencies in town. We learned from that and implemented it into our artist housing program. We currently have 18 houses and 20 artists in that program. And we had experienced, I'm sorry, I'm gonna look at the time. We had experienced ourselves being priced out of neighborhoods that we made better, you know, that we could no longer afford to be there. And as artists, we had kind of mined, you know, by developers. And then I'm not saying all developers are evil or anything, but I'm saying it happens over and over again in all cities, everywhere. So we wanted to make sure artists who aren't thinking about, artists typically just are driven to create. They aren't thinking about home ownership all the time or their finances. So they just become consumed with creating or this getting out of their brain. It's like that song, "Get out of my car and into my life." Get out of my dream, get out, I don't know. So we wanted to make sure artists have something, you know, and that we knew when we purchased this campus, because we have a 5-acre campus with multiple buildings, that we knew we were going to increase the property values by being there, but we wanted to retain what artists bring. Artists bring chaos, which also brings creation. It's not easy, but it's worth it, and it's what's going to set the stage for the future. And so we continue to have ties with New Harmony. We will continue. I'm working with Paula Katz at the State Museum on a project even past the exhibit with Ben, and we have a tree of 40 fruits. I saw it when I first started coming here, probably in 2017, and I was like, we need one of those. And so we just got one. So there's going to continue to be all these ties between this town of 800 and a city of 800,000. Now, Indianapolis suburban is like 1.3 million, but Indianapolis Center Township is around 800,000 people. So I think of the other unique thing today about this town is it's a microcosm of what a major city is too. You have people who, like half and half, have different maybe political affiliations, but they figure it out. They learn to live together and work together despite what differences they might have or how they might think differently. So I was really interested in seeing, because you can see it here in the relationships between each other, how you all make it work, and you all, like, this town has drawn this amazing group of people, and you all work together, and it's amazing, and thank you for being our muse. So up next is Kent Parker. He is the chair of the board of the Robert Lee Blaffer Foundation.
Good evening or good afternoon. Let me start by addressing the elephant in the room, if I may. I'm not wearing dress pants. I like cargo pants. They're comfortable. And sometimes I leave one of the legs off just for the heck of it. My good friend Marsh Davis said, "Good luck today, break a leg." And I said, "Got that covered." And final note I make is I've got some motorcycles for sale. Call my wife, Lori. She can help you with it. So I'm pleased to be here. I've really enjoyed listening to the speakers' talks. I have a formidable task. I was asked to try to share Jane Blaffer Owen's vision for New Harmony. Now, that will require a bit of presumption on anyone's part, trust me. And, you know, Jane's been gone 15 years. There are a lot of people here in this room, I'm looking across the room, that knew Jane and knew her well. In fact, you felt like you were her closest, like, confidant when you met Jane. Jane had a way of connecting with people that was not only genuine, but felt special. And I think many of us have our own ideas, those of us that knew Jane, have our own ideas about what was important to her. So allow me to try to consolidate some form of that notion, and pardon me if perhaps I don't capture all of it, if I may say. As chairperson of the Robert Lee Blaffer Foundation, I'm very honored to be here to represent that organization. It was a foundation that Jane Blaffer Owen established some 65 years ago in 1960 to help bring her vision for New Harmony to life. The gallery we're celebrating today grew out of that same spirit, one of imagination, community, and a deep belief in the power of art and place. This afternoon isn't just about an institution, it's about a vision. A vision first brought to life through the remarkable imagination and commitment of Jane. When she first came here in I think, the early 1940s, she encountered not just an historic town, but a place layered with bold experiments in community and culture. The harmonious spiritual utopia, the Owens social experiment, and then many years later, her own. She saw a place here, a place where the past and the future could meet. For Jane, preservation was never about freezing something in time. It was about creating something alive. She believed New Harmony could be a modern spiritual utopia, a living community that wove together history, art, architecture, landscape, and most importantly, human connection. Let's face it, what's art about? It's about human connection. She often spoke about creating a spiritual landscape, but not strictly a religious idea. She had a belief that art and nature, thoughtfully joined, can elevate a place and the people who gather in that place. That belief inspired her to commission the Roofless Church, a Philip Johnson masterpiece, and to support Richard Meyer's Athenaeum, which I think I said that right, which we're standing in here today, among many other projects here in town. At the Robert Lee Blaffer Foundation, we are honored to be stewards of many of those public spaces, including the Roofless Church, and to continue Jane's legacy of thoughtful care, creativity, and openness to new ideas. But Jane didn't just build beautiful spaces. She created an invitation. She wanted people to come here to think deeply, to walk these gardens and these streets, and to engage in art in a way that was both intimate and transformative. That's exactly the spirit in which the gallery was founded in 1975. The New Harmony Gallery of Contemporary Art was conceived as a place where living artists could experiment, where new ideas could find a home, and where a small community could host big ideas. Jane understood something essential, that art isn't just for cities and museums. It belongs in the fabric of daily life, in places like this, places that carry meaning, history, and hope. But Jane's vision was more than architecture and art. It was personal. She welcomed people in her golf cart. She met them on the street. She made everyone feel like they were part of something here. Everyone belonged. She did talk up and not down. She believed art could be accessible and community should be inclusive. For her, New Harmony wasn't a project, it was a calling. As we celebrate the gallery's 50 years, we're also honoring her legacy. Every exhibition, every conversation that has taken place within these walls is part of that continuing story she set in motion 65 years ago. Her work reminds us that places like New Harmony matter, not because they're perfect, but because they invite reflection, creativity, and connection. That's what Jane saw, and that's what the gallery we're celebrating continues to support. So this afternoon, as we mark this milestone, I invite us all to remember Jane Blaffer Owen's extraordinary gift. A vision that dared to see a small town as a great stage for art, ideas, and human spirit. And I invite us to carry that vision forward, not just in celebration of the past, but in a commitment to the future. Thank you, and happy 50th anniversary to the New Harmony Contemporary Gallery of Art.
Thank you Thank you so much. I'm a little emotional. Thank you so much to everyone who talked. We're going to have two former gallery directors in conversation shortly. And I just wanted to introduce them. You have about 30 seconds after I introduce them to resituate yourself, because we're going to reorganize the stage. But first, we'll have former Historic New Harmony and New Harmony Gallery of Contemporary Art Director Connie Vinesapple in conversation with New Harmony Gallery of Contemporary Art founding director and artist John P. Begley. Please allow us a moment to set up for that.
Good day to everyone. I'm so thrilled to be here for this celebration. And let me just start out by saying that of all the jobs I've ever had, from detasseling corn to being on the town council, the gallery was my favorite. So it is my privilege to be here with my good friend John Begley, who has been an inspiration to so many people over the years. And this is kind of unrehearsed. We got together for dinner about 6 months ago and kind of talked about what are the things that people want to know about the early days of the gallery, because John was the first director. So I posed some questions to him that we want to present to you today. So John, what was the original concept of a contemporary gallery here in the cornfields? And who is the person that inspired you to get involved?
I can't answer that question. I had a mentor in graduate school, Rudy Pizzotti, who was a great artist. And the part of Jane's vision had reestablished the New Harmony Commission. And that was happening a little before 1975. And one of the people on that commission was Herman Wells, who was chancellor at IU. And he gathered some of his distinguished professors, Rudy included, and said, you got to send graduates down to New Harmony and see what's going on down there, because it's exciting, and I'm sure there's ways to be involved. So Rudy told me, and I was graduating, and I built a shop. I wanted to be a printmaker that printed for other people, and I thought, I'm from Southern Indiana, it needs one of those. And so I came down here to talk to Ralph Schwartz and Neil Pagano. I brought my portfolio and I pitched original prints and lithographs and inviting artists in for residencies to make prints so that we'd be active. And Ralph and Neil nodded, and I thought, well, this is not going so well.
And I'll just say, Ralph Schwartz was the first director of Historic New Harmony, built this building.
And as the meeting was sort of closing up and I was packing things up, Jane Owen walked in. And this is a highlight. And she looked, I had brought one framed print, and the rest were, loose in my folio. And she said, I really like that, and I know exactly where it should go. Come with me. And I looked at Ralph and Neil, and they said, go. And so we went downstairs from the office, got in the golf cart, and drove to the Orchard House. And I carried the print, and I was carrying this framed print, which was big. It's hanging off the back of the golf cart. And we walked in, and she said, take that piece off over the fireplace there and hang yours up there. And I go over and take it off, and I put mine up, and I look at the piece that I'm taking off the wall, and it's Ellsworth Kelly. I think most of this audience knows him. Don't have to explain it. Sometimes you do. And so then she said, just leave it. I'll send you a check. Well, this is better than I could have imagined. So we go back to the office, and I go upstairs, and I get the rest of my stuff. And Ralph looks at me and says, well, I don't think we need a print shop, but can you run a gallery? And I said, sure. So a lot had gone on before. There was an empty building that they needed something happening in. One of the things that's so great about the gallery, there's the gallery and the cafe. Foster Tolliver was across the street in the hardware store. Doc Rock was directly across the street. I mean, it was part of the fabric of the community being in that block of buildings.
And still.
Still is. And I think that's one of its strengths.
Well, can you describe the first opening reception at the gallery? Can you remember what that was like?
Yep.
Now, this is not a setup. I don't know what the answer is going to be.
Well, the quote, Audra asked me about this, and I said, it's something about how is a contemporary gallery in a small rural Indiana town. I said, well, it's not impossible, but not really likely. And so and I wasn't thinking about 50 years. I came in August, and we opened at toward the end of October. So there was a lot of things. Skip Rhodes here helped me build screens to keep the sun out, and we had to find art, and we had to paint the walls and put the lights up, and Bob Letterman and all the crew at Historic New Harmony were engaged in getting the space ready. And that day, there were 4 houses floating down the streets on rollers. The Wolf House that the president of
the Today Show covered it.
Yeah, the Today Show was here. There was a barn going up. The Cooper shop and the barn was being raised, and we were opening a gallery. I mean, it was an exciting day. But the 4 houses, I can remember that house coming down Main Street toward the gallery. I don't know where it came from. But it was amazing.
What were some of the other creative activities going on in town at that time? You talked about the houses that were being moved all over.
Well, you know, the education component of what happens in New Harmony is really a through line for the history of the city. The University of Evansville had a ceramics workshop that Les Miley had founded, and they later added a weaving workshop, and I convinced them that they ought to have a print workshop too. So we kept that going in the first years. So we always had young artists in town working, learning, and then the theater program at U of E was deeply engaged, and a lot of famous actors came out of that program that went on to success in television and other places. So there was that milieu of just exciting young people, you know, really trying to put together their lives.
Okay. So how long did you actually live in New Harmony, you and Kay, and can you describe how it was here? How was it to live here in the midst of all of Historic New Harmony's programs and all of these things happening at one time?
Busy.
How long were you here?
8 years. So, you know, I think 1978, there was a really big snowstorm.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, we celebrated. Bill Wilson, whose son Andrew's going to be with us later, knocks on the door and says, "We're pulling people around in inner tubes." So we piled out and got on the back of a pickup truck with ropes attached and inner tubes, and we skied, sledded all around New Harmony. I mean, it was an exciting evening. So those kind of things happened all the time. You know, there was a lecture at Murphy Auditorium by this, the curator of Charles Alexander Lesueur's museum in Le Havre, France, and she'd been talking for 30, 40 minutes, and she had quite a heavy French accent, and which is a good thing. And she kept saying, "Eau de Vue did this," and Lesueur never became as famous as his contemporary, Eau de Vue. And about 30 minutes into this, I was going, "I don't know this artist, Eau de Vue." And then I said, "Eau de Vue, Audubon." He's talking about Audubon. And it was so bad to stand up to in the audience and say, "She means Audubon." So there was always excitement like that.
John, can you use the mic?
Yeah, use your mics. I'm sorry. I'll hold. Okay. No, I'm sorry. I thought I was projecting.
Well, you have had so many interesting artists over the years in your time at the gallery, and I certainly have, and it was a privilege to be able to have really the whole world of art available to bring in. Can you talk about some of your favorite shows in the early days?
One of the things that I was interested in when I took the job was the fact that you didn't need to go to New York to be an artist, that it was possible to live a life in art in small Indiana town. Now you have to work at it, but you have to work at it when you go to New York. I mean, going to New York is no free pass to being famous or financially supported. So in some ways, maybe it's easier in a place where people, you know people and you understand people and you can talk to people. So that was one of the things that I was interested in, is showcasing the talent that surrounded us in New Harmony. And you know, one of the things that being from New Harmony and not having a huge, although there were artists here, Clem Penrose was here, and there were, soon Janet Loris joined us, and there were artists. Rodney Myers was my first hire, who had just graduated from USI, or ISUE in those days. Okay.
When they were talking about Mrs. Owen, you were telling them the story about you taking your print that you had.
Okay, hang on a second. We got another mic here.
Oh, well, I don't know.
But I'm watching you, Kurt.
If you want me to turn the volume
You're
up.
staying on time, Kurt.
Nah, I promise I won't. I'll try not to. Uh-huh. No. If I say it, everybody hears it. No, the thing was,
You took the painting and you put it up on the wall, but what you didn't tell, that was always my favorite part of the story, because it tells you about the eye that Mrs. Owen had. The thing you first told me when you told me the story about it, which was shortly after it happened, I think, that the colors in the print matched the colors in the room perfectly.
in the room where he, right?
Yep. And she did it time and time again when she'd walk into the gallery and take that piece over there, and you'd walk in the room and go, oh, yeah, it belongs here. You know, yeah.
She did. She had an incredible eye. It was such a privilege to work with her. I'll just tell a quick story about the first day that I was working at the gallery. I started kind of in December, I think, and then in January, I was there quite a bit by myself because my colleague Kurt Hubler had been working by himself for several months. So I was there. There were, you know, I walked out the front door and there were no people anywhere. This was Sunday afternoon in January. And pretty soon an artist comes in, a guy by the name of, I think, Bill Boyson, who was a glass professor at Carbondale. And he was pitching the idea of New Harmony Gallery having a glass studio, which is very expensive and it would have been fun, but he was doing the hard sell. I was at the desk, he was right here, talking. I see this blithe spirit float into the room. And I'm looking over here and he's talking, selling me on glass. And she stands there very patiently for about 10 minutes and he doesn't shut up. And finally she says, "Dear, I came to meet you. You're the new gallery director, aren't you?" And I just about died. She was the most beautiful spirit you can imagine, and really the inspiration, I think, for all of us who got to know her and work with her, because she understood contemporary art in a very deep way and was willing to try, you know, was willing to support us in those early days when we wanted to do fun, crazy things that maybe people around here had never seen before. So.
Yeah, exactly. Sunday afternoon was always a good afternoon. One day, this BMW roars into town, crosses the bridge, does a U-turn, and slams on his brakes right in front of the front door. And this guy jumps out, and he walks into the gallery, and he goes like this, and he gets up close, goes to the next piece. And he says, "I heard there was something going on here." And I said, "Hi, I'm John Begley." And he says, "I'm Ulfert de Wilkie." And Fulford Wilkie was the museum director at the University of Iowa. And he heard something was going on in New Harmony.
Yeah, yeah. My last question for you, and we're going to wrap it up, Audra. We could go on forever, you know. So, John, what do you see as the gallery's role now, at this moment, and into the future?
Well, you know, one of the things that's so great about 50 years is it is not one person. I mean, Jane was instrumental, but man, you, April Bashardine, Gary, the succession of great directors, Audra now, the support of the community, of the artists that go and come, you know, the town song, that was great, you know, and it talks about how New Harmony can become home. When you didn't grow up here, you might have grown up here, but once you feel the spirit of this place and the people that collectively have made it happen to this point, I think it has the chance, the probability to be here in 50 years. And not everything does, you know. So hopefully, you know, the programs have changed. The way we talk about art has changed. Thursday night, I was at a talk at the Filson Historical Society in Louisville, and it was a collaboration between a letterpress printer and professor of English at the University of Louisville, and a young woman who was part of the Miami tribe, who now has established a research center at the Miami University in Southern Ohio, outside of Cincinnati. And that kind of, and they said she was talking about how her art had ties to traditional Miami art and the diamond shape that was important to the tribe, and how they wove and put fabric together, did ribbons and things like that, all within a very traditional way. And yet here she was, also a contemporary artist, graphic designer. This guy was, and they were collaborating on a piece that was talking about the language of the Miami. And there hasn't been a native speaker for the Miami tribe. The last proficient native speaker died in about 35 years ago. So now they're reconstructing the language. And the way and the reason they can do that is the Jesuits came to this middle of the country and started writing Miami, their language, so that there's a written archive of written, which they'd never done prior to the Jesuits coming. So, you know, you have this complicated history that we live in of displacement. You know, the Miami were relocated from here to Oklahoma. It's terrible what happened to the native tribes. But somehow we're in a point of history where we don't forget that, you know, or we try not to forget that. And we have tools, we have determination, we have creative people who can teach themselves to speak Miami again by looking at manuscripts of written by Jesuit priests from France in 1600. You know, I mean, the possibilities are exciting, you know? I mean, and I think this gallery, this town, it's not just the gallery, it's the town, can do those same sort of things. somebody mentioned the Miami here today, so all of a sudden we're aware that we have this complicated history and that people have got to put two and two together and
more.
And do something.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you both again, and that's a really lovely segue to our upcoming panel on utopias. But first, we have a special presentation.
I'd like to ask Katie Waters to come. Ran out of juice. Katie Waters is going to make a special presentation. And again, she came on the advisory board, became a faculty member at USI, and immediately became engaged, supportive, and continues to be in the
In my old age.
In your old age.
Hello? Yes? Hooray, hooray. Okay, well, thank you, John. I have to say your amazing foresight and artistic vision led us to today celebrating 50 years of contemporary creativity. Ai Weiwei says, creativity is the power to reject the past, to change, although your talk just didn't kind of deny that, change the status quo and to seek new potential. Creativity is the power to act. You acted, and we thank you.
Yes.
In 1985, I was a member of the Gallery Director Search Committee for the then 10-year-old New Harmony Gallery of Contemporary Art. We selected a young arts administrator who worked for the Chicago International Art Exposition, at that time the country's premier art fair. That was Connie Weinsapple. In the 40 years since, I and New Harmony have come to know her very well. Connie, a 1978 USI art graduate, earned her MFA in Painting and Art History from Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville in 1981. Connie served as gallery director for 11 years before being appointed as director of historic New Harmony itself in 1996. She retired in 2016 after 31 years of exemplary service. Audra asked me to speak to the impact Connie has had on the gallery as director, as historic New Harmony director, and as a current member of both advisory boards in 3 to 4 minutes. That is impossible. Connie's impact on contemporary art and historic preservation in Indiana and beyond cannot be underestimated. She made the rest of the state and art centers throughout the Midwest keenly aware of the small utopian town of New Harmony, and then its then only one art gallery as a beacon for the newest and best in contemporary art. The town now boasts more art galleries per capita than Manhattan, just saying. She, with many others, such as Jane Owen, Josephine Elliott, Don Pitzer, raised the profile of New Harmony as a significant utopian site and a living, thriving modern community. Audra also said, "No one knows better than you." And I'm not sure about that, but we have had many adventures together. And so here are a few gallery members that spring to mind and that I can remember or reveal. Most memorable exhibit curated. There are so many to choose from, but Sad Wave, installation by Malcolm Cochran. This was a wave that filled the gallery with cowtails. It was incredible. Most memorable exhibit curated. Most memorable collaboration with USI Art Program. The senior seminar exhibits Connie established in 1991, providing art majors their first professional gallery experience. And I believe one of those members of the first senior seminar exhibit is in the house, Shannon Corrigan. Most intense interview experience. Interviewing 18 art historian candidates at the Seattle College Art Association Conference. By the way, we hired Dr. Hilary Braysmith as a result, in no small part because when we said New Harmony, she said Robert Owen. She knew him. If I had to pick just one more, excuse me. This is not quite as gallery related, but most memorable utopian shared experience. Standing on the top of the Athenaeum with Connie and friends, looking over the cathedral labyrinth, the harmonist graveyard, and what would become Eames Demetrios' A Healing Palindrome in 2013, we were there at midnight as the calendar turned to January 1st, 2000. But if I had to pick just one memory, most vivid sensory art memory, besides the 3-hour sushi extravaganza we treated ourselves to in Seattle after those interviews, but this was a cold November twilight, the gloaming, in front of the Old Heron School of Art, and we were inside a tunnel. The near darkness and the smell of freshly cut saplings were intense, as was the intimacy of the experience. That art installation was called Caught in the Act, 1995 by Patrick Doherty. We must bring him to New Harmony, Connie said. And although it took a few years, in 2003, Doherty created Nest Houses in McClure Square. Beloved by all, and I believe a favorite of Doherty himself, because although he has created over 200 installations, his website and books always feature our New Harmony piece. This is just one example of how Connie Weinseppel's outstanding creative vision, dedication, and drive has made New Harmony a significantly even more astounding place than when she arrived in 1985. Connie, please step forward.
Believe it or not, I'm speechless.
For anyone who's wondering what's happening, she's presenting her with an award. Despite any visual evidence to the contrary, that's what's happening.
Connie, please accept this award. Okay. Please accept this award in honor of all you have done and continue to do for art, for historic preservation, and New Harmony.
We're going to take about 15 seconds to arrange the stage and have a panel. Please don't leave. This is a very exciting part. We're going to talk about utopias, which at least some of you here like because you're in New Harmony.
Oh, I know. No.
Okay, welcome to the show and tell portion. Right after this, by the way, we have a reception with refreshments and auctions, so please don't leave, and we're going to offer you a lot of insights on utopias, as mentioned. So welcome to the artist panel portion of today's program. This panel is called Contemporary Practice Moving Toward Utopia. And I just want to say of each of you, I'm honored and thrilled that you're here, and I couldn't have chosen a more exciting cohort to talk about utopias with, so I'm very thrilled. So if you want to look into your program, you have an insert with each artist listed. We have Anila Kayom Aga to my right, Mary Mattingly in the center, Sam Van Aken off to the far right. And it is a pleasure to welcome you here to New Harmony, some of you back, some of you for the first time, and to welcome all of you here today. So I did want to also mention each of these artists are either in the town of New Harmony with an artwork. We have a program tomorrow with Sam Van Aken at 10:30 a.m. Wear your coat. It's supposed to be very cold. We're going to meet in front of the Athenaeum to learn about the trees of 40 fruit that we have in town that you'll see on the screen shortly. And if you have time tomorrow from 12 to 5, please swing by the gallery to see artwork. In the gallery, we have 2 frame prints by Mary Mattingly and 2 mixed media works in the gallery, which are by Anila Kayum Aga. With that, utopias. So just for some background, the term utopia arose from the book by the same name, which was published in 1516. As many of you know, that's by Thomas More. What you may not know is the first utopian artwork was in that book. Well, in the 1518 imprint of that book, rather, which included a fine art print, which was by German-Swiss artist Ambrosius Holbein, a map of the island of Utopia, which was presented in the narrative. Over the years since the publication of Utopia, various artists' exhibitions and series of work have all been created to explore the idea of utopia, which, according to Utopias by the MIT Press, can be summarized as the aspiration of a better world and the acknowledgement that its form may only ever live in our imaginations. Works by Anila Kayam Aga encompass immersive installation, works on paper, painting, and sculpture, and in a sense speak to the utopias present, in some cases in a non-place, or even in an other space, which is referenced by Foucault in his text of Other Spaces, also in the volume Utopias by the MIT Press. Works by the artist and Look Both Ways speak to the artist's keen sense of materials and labor, yes, also the ability of many to combine forces to realize a shared and common goal. The artist refers to learning how to sew from her mother at the age of 5 and witnessing the community of women where she was raised in Lahore, Pakistan, working together with the artist's own mother to stitch quilts. The artist's labor-intensive works require significant investment of material and time while questioning the value of these various kinds of labor through the process implicit in these artworks. Artist Mary Mattingly has created work engaging with natural environments and access to critical resources, including food and water via projects like Swale, which was just up, sorry, we just missed it, but it will be coming back. A floating food forest navigating the New York City harbor from 2016 through 2019. Engaging with sustainability and public access to resources. Her work takes a nimble approach towards sustainable urban agriculture, and she offers advocacy for public access to resources and environmental empowerment in concrete and resourceful ways. Sam Van Aken's Trees of 40 Fruit, which may be the most familiar to you here, have maintained a pride of place in New Harmony since they were installed over 10 years ago. The trees are much-loved living artworks from 40 varieties of non-commercially viable stone fruits. The artworks that we have in town are trees number 105 and 106 out of how many now, do you know?
I don't know, like probably about 40. 40.
40, but it's 105 and 106. I'm learning something today. That make it into the world. That's very utopian of you. Sam's artistic interventions entwine the realm of fine art, science, narrative, and communication. The artist's 2019 TED Talk, How One Tree Grows 40 Different Types of Fruit, has over 700,000 views online, speaking to the continued interest in the natural world and the archive of living beings that share it with us. Signed prints of our trees, by the way, are available in the forthcoming live auction, so do stick around. You have these artist bios in your insert as well, and I wanted to kick off this talk about moving toward utopia with a question for whoever wants to jump in and answer it first. So in order to start, I wanted to ask in general terms what each of you believes is a utopian ideal that you strive to realize in your art in your art practice, and if you could point to a specific series that you've worked on that speaks to these utopian ideals.
Okay, I'll go first. Well, thank you for the introduction. I think I've been fascinated with utopias for about 20 years, mostly because I'm in upstate New York, and I live right next door to the Oneida colony, which colloquially is known as the utopic sex cult. So you're kind of like, I don't know, you're kind of like, I understand why the Shakers disappear, but I don't understand why the perfectionists disappear. So I've lectured at Chautauqua. I've also had readings done at Lilydale, like many readings at Lilydale. And so, I don't know, like it's something that kept coming back to as a recurring theme in my work. Although I do find that like my definition of utopia sometimes is like other people's definition of hell. So I think within my work though, and I don't know, for me like this idea of utopia, maybe it's like particularly because where we're at politically right now, it seems further away than it was 20 years ago when I started looking into them. So I think it's more a state of something that's becoming rather than something that is utopia. And I think that when artworks can provide us new ways of seeing and being, I think that's when we get closer. I think that gets closer to utopia. A couple years ago, I planted an orchard of 100 trees in New York City. It's known as the Open Orchard, and it's a 400-year history of fruit trees from pre-European contact to the early 20th century. And it's located on Governor's Island. And I thought that was like the big gesture for it. But one of the things that I also did as kind of a side project is I distributed 100 trees to community gardens in New York City. And these were to all 5 boroughs. And what I tried to do is place trees that originated in New York back into the very neighborhood that they came from. So we did the distribution of all the trees, and the one thing that really kind of stood out to me was that, and I hadn't even planned it, people started sending me photos of themselves with their trees at their community garden. And the smile that they had, and the care that they've given to those trees over the last couple of years. At least for me, that starts to work towards utopia.
Thanks. I think we have some affinity in our project, so I feel honored to be able to speak with you about this. I've also been interested in utopias for a long time, and I think about them in a different way. Maybe I grew up in a place where drinking water was polluted from agriculture, and remembering that, like just the difficulties of that, and then thinking about a utopia that's like something that's always shifting. And maybe the utopia for me that I wanted to see, and as an idea, was access to water, to food, to shelter, basic needs just being met. And that, I think, shouldn't be utopia, but it feels like it would be the ultimate utopia right now, especially maybe in this country, because I think about commons and commons studies and people like Eleanor Ostrom, who have studied commons around the world that are currently in existence and that have been throughout history. And she says that, you know, a commons can exist when first people know each other, they trust each other, and they work together in caring for a place, but also that they're not just the beneficiaries of a place, but they're also the co-creators and the protectors and the decision makers for that place. So I want that to be a possible utopia. You know, I think that the more commons can kind of make inroads into our urban and rural communities, the more we'll have these basic needs met. So I'll just talk briefly about Swale, which is a floating food forest, and it's a project that I was able to co-create with about 20 plus people, and it was on a barge, and you'll see it in passing. And it's a food forest where you can come and pick fresh foods. It's always docked adjacent to a public park where it's in New York City, where it's been illegal for about 100 years to forage anything from the park. So this is a workaround. It docks right next to the park. You can go onto the barge, you can pick there, but not in the park. So it's a little provocation to the Parks Department as well.
And I just wanted to ask you real quick, do you think Swale is a form of a communal living experiment?
I think that I think that it could be. I mean, I guess I want to say that it could be a commons, but it functions more as a heterotopia, the technical definition.
Thank you. Both of you said such beautiful things. I feel kind of a jerk to talk about something a little. As I've gotten older, you know, as an artist, you're often very idealistic. And I feel like I now have a contradiction that lives in my heart and my work, because I am often thinking about heterotopia as well as heterotopia and utopia, because I feel like my cynicism has grown over the years as I've seen a lack of care for our environment, our women, our minorities, our people that come from places that don't have food or care or health care. And so for me, because I'm an immigrant myself in this country, and I hope and have helped other immigrants also rise, it's just one of those things where I think often that utopia is something that we always go towards, but it's hard to confront human greed and reach utopia fast enough so that we can impact our current and future societies in this world. And so it sounds a little, but that's like how I feel. And now that I hear the news on a daily basis, I kind of feel like I wonder if it's ever going to change. So you see, this is not a refuge piece up there. There's two different types. They're two different sizes. And I'll talk a little bit about that, so I hope I'm not too long-winded. But the larger one is actually on the 100-acre woods of Newfields. If you come up to Indianapolis, please have a look at it. I built that in 2018 because I was very interested in sort of thinking about what it meant to be American, because I'm a naturalized American. And when I was moving to this country, I was always thinking about how important it was for us to be told that America is the land of freedom, and you can go and be anything you want. And I wanted to be an artist desperately, so I moved here, and I have become an artist, and I have shown internationally. But I felt like over the last maybe decade or so, the vision of America has kind of tarnished a little bit overseas, and so that piece was a response to how there's a lack of agency, there's a lack of optimism, there's a lack of privacy afforded to people who may look different. And then also, the little house on the top of the hill is no longer accessible. And that was the intent for that work. And then I made a smaller version of it with a different pattern that didn't have a door, that actually talks about the lack of agency that a lot of Americans also have, because they are poor and underprivileged as well. And so for me, utopia would mean that we give the hungry, the needy, some sustenance, and that seems like a little far-fetched right now. So very, very heavy. I'm so sorry.
I think that's a very wide range of utopia, dystopia, heterotopias,
And back again. That actually is a really good segue, just pardon that, to the next theme, which is about society. So as noted, the MIT Press in the 2009 volume from the Documents of Contemporary Art series, Utopias, features a text by Foucault entitled Of Other Spaces. So this speculates on internal and external space and analyzes how these frameworks impact society, which everyone here has spoken about society and the frameworks involved. So one of the passages there says, the space in which we live, which draws us out of ourselves, in which our time and history occurs, is a heterogeneous space. In other words, we do not live in a kind of void. We live inside a set of relations linked to this heterogeneous space, rather. So Foucault observes that these are fundamentally unreal spaces. Utopias are fundamentally unreal spaces, but rather heterotopias are something like a counter site, a kind of effectively enacted utopia. I think of this like an estimation, if you're keeping track of the vocabulary here. So these heterotopias sort of are, I would say, kind of almost a counterculture too. So I would like to know, how do you each approach this idea of heterotopia in your practice? And I'll either start with Anila or with Mary, because I think you both mentioned that word, so I'll hand it off to, yeah, okay, great. Either.
I do think that a lot of the work that I've been able to make, I would probably call a heterotopia rather than a utopia, a utopia is no place, so rather than an urge for a utopia. I think because it is constantly trying to work with difference, the difference between, say, the park and the waterfront, or the rules of the water. Or maybe I'll talk about gardens, because this is a heterotopic space, Foucault says. And it's a heterotopic space because it's a spiritual space, but at the same time, it's of the earth. And he says that in this one plot of land remains the whole universe. And I loved that idea and thinking through that in terms of spheres. So I included some sculptures of spheres and that I've been able to do before, because they, to me, represent this like a microsphere within a macrosphere. And I think one thing that's exciting to me about public art is that you can make an ecosystem within a space, in this case spheres, and you can see when something's not working really clearly, because suddenly it's such a small system. If one little thing goes wrong, then the whole thing kind of cascades and fails. So it's an instance that's a microcosm of what is happening on a larger scale in our surroundings. And I think that, maybe there are other beautiful metaphors within that, but I will spare you. I'll pass it to you.
Thank you. I think my biggest drive, or why I make such big work and then I switch to making smaller works, is because I have often felt that public space versus inner spaces are sort of like spaces okay, let me rephrase that. When I was growing up in Pakistan, I often thought that my female relatives didn't really have an inner life that they lived, because they were always taking care of somebody else. And so often they were caretakers for their parents, for their children, for their siblings. And I wanted to work as an artist, and so I became very selfish, and I decided to take my inner space as something very sacred. And I actually have also titled some work that's called Illuminated Inner Spaces, because I feel like people need to have an inner life. And then there's a contradiction in my work, because I often utilize a space as big as an architect within another space. So for example, I don't know if you're familiar with my work overall, but like I've made these huge cubes with lights inside that shine light all over, and they make this, the environment in a space like this, where it becomes almost like a spiritual space, and people who may be strangers start talking to each other. And the reason for that was because public space, often when I was growing up, was so dangerous for a young female in Pakistan growing up. And then when I moved here, the alien space was so dangerous for an illegal alien like me, who is brown and lived in Texas. And so I wanted to occupy bigger and bigger spaces so I could stretch and be as big as an architect who is often a man, generally. So there are no absolutes, of course, but that was my reason for stretching and becoming bigger than I would have ever been allowed to be if I had continued to be that mousy little person that I used to be living in Pakistan.
And I just want to interject. You have a solo show upcoming at the Frist Art Museum in Nashville, Tennessee. Will that have some of these illuminated sculptural installations in them?
They're going to be, I believe there are possibly, I can't remember what, but there are two major installations. One's a cube and one's a rectangle. And I would encourage people who live in Nashville to go see it, because I think the Flood of Tears that I recently finished and is touring the country is one of my strongest pieces, even though I say so myself, but very objectively.
So you can visit the Frist Art Museum website. I know it's in spring, but do you want to share that date? It's in April 2026. Sam, it's your turn.
Well, it's hard to follow.
I know,
but
agree.
Your responses are amazing. I don't know. Like I think that the fragmentation that Foucault puts forth with this idea of heterotopia, I think we've arrived there. Like I've been thinking recently, it's like, wow, we are in this postmodern culture that theorists like Foucault predicted in many ways. And so for me, I think it's more valuable to actually look at utopias. Like I think I remain fascinated by that point in the 19th century where groups upon groups of people got together and attempted to come up with new social structures and new social relations. Because I look at our culture now, look at our society now, things are not working, right? And it's like, we need that type of, at least that attempt or the space to occupy, to attempt to create those new structures.
And maybe even if it's not on a large scale, if it's just multiple attempts and people see each other's attempts and sort of work together to disperse those attempts, I think that they just grow exponentially.
Maybe you could start with a town song. Finally, not a bad start. So just to wind us down, finally, in relation to the idea of utopias as a non-site, so I wanted to flip that on its head and ask you, how do you use actual site in your practice as an artist? Somebody, okay.
Okay, site is very important for me because I am trying to make sort of immersive environments, but it doesn't have to be site-specific, which is something I've learned over the years as I made these large sculptures, because I feel like I could probably fill any type of space. And what I've learned about light is that light will travel as long as there's no obstruction. And if you put an obstruction, make it so stunning that, you get these wonderful shadows on the people, on anybody moving around, but it's also sort of like creating art, yet the art gallery becomes the art. And so I think site becomes very important once it's installed, but I could maybe, and recently I was thinking that it would be really cool if I could actually install one of my cubes in a cathedral-like space, because that would change, because, if a cathedral has different arches and things, the obstruction would act as a deterrent, but also as an interesting architectural feature. And so I'm fascinated by architecture, and I enjoy spaces that allow me to experiment with them, yet site is important and not important simultaneously, which is a weird thing to say, right? So that's where I'm going to stop and let you guys participate.
Thanks.
So yeah, I think site is incredibly important in terms of maybe I'll just start with materials where I would look for materials that would determine what the sculpture would be made of, for instance. I think that they have a resonance and they need to be part of the artwork. I also think about the history of a place. For instance, maybe there's an image of something called Ebb of a Springtide, and it's a water clock that was in a place called Socrates Sculpture Park in Queens, New York, overlooking the East River, which is the ocean, so it's salt water, and it flooded during Hurricane Sandy in 2012, and it's sort of continuing. And I think some people there remember the floods, and most people don't, and this sculpture recalled them and thought about the next one in a way. Swale certainly the food forest was site dependent, so it had to be docked next to a public park. It ideally would be in a place where there was already energy about public food and about thinking through how parks could be used differently. And probably the place that it was best sited was a place in the Bronx called Concrete Plant Park, where people were already working on food access, used that sculpture as a stage to continue that work, and then the Parks Department did say, we'll make this one park into a place where you can forage, at least in this 7-acre plot. And if they'll do more if more people want it in other places. So they're like not breaking their own rule, but there's a little bit of lenience. And I think so I guess my point is like when site can align with an artwork, it can make a difference, I think. And I think it's the most essential part of public art. I have more to say on that, right, maybe. But
We have a reception soon, and you can ask the artists things there one-on-one as well. Do you want to add something? Yeah, go ahead.
Like you've said it better than I did, because site is very, very important, and where it originates or where it ends up is really kind of key to it, right? When I was citing this is not a refuge at the 100-acre park at Newfields, I wanted the exit to face the water on the lake. And I was told by multiple people, like, you are not letting people see the entrance because it's it's facing the other way. And so people, when they go there, they have to walk around it to go inside. But it was intentional because I wanted people to realize that people cross water, people cross deserts to go and find safety for their people. And so that was the intent. And so I totally agree. Alignment is so important too.
I'm so glad you elaborated on that.
Yeah, I think I'm consistent with everybody here where site is just about everything. When I started the Tree of 40 Fruit project, I was just designing the trees to blossom in a particular way. I created a timeline of when all the varieties would blossom in relationship to each other, so it was purely an aesthetic work. Did an interview on NPR, and the government was like, "What are you doing?" And that's a long, very elaborate story. But found out that I had one of the largest collections of stone fruit outside of the government, which was kind of shocking to me. And I grew up on a farm, but I had no idea. Like, I thought there were red plums and blue plums. And it turned out that I had varieties that were 2,000 years old that originated in Damascus. Varieties that originated in Asia and were brought here over a couple hundred years. And so coming to that knowledge, then like as I started to create trees like the ones here at New Harmony, it became all about the site. I mean, ultimately, agriculture is displacement, right? Somebody's being displaced from that land so somebody else can grow something there. And so looking into that history of not just the specific varieties that were brought here by the harmonists from Pennsylvania over, but talking about how the land gets used within that space. I think between those things, what happens is I'm very interested in counter memories, right? Like how a space can have a specific memory, but then there's all these forgotten histories that and in many ways, we aren't privy to. And so teasing those out through the work, I think, is important.
I just want to reiterate, tomorrow at 10:30 a.m., I'm here to shill for the house. Come talk to Sam at his tree. It's going to be 10:30 a.m. here. We'll meet in front of the Athenaeum, rain, shine, or snow. So thank you all for your wonderful reflections today and for really mining through your practice and sharing that with us. It's not easy to do that, and I really appreciate it. We're going to have refreshments for you all, and it's free. So stick around, head on to the main floor. Please get your paddled a bit. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you downstairs. Thank you.
Are you